Hello there, hello, good evening, and hopefully today things will go smoothly. I checked and it wasn't anything at my end. I think it might have been a lot of people on the line, or maybe the weather. Who knows? Something was interfering with the Twitch connection, but we are here, and we're gonna this evening play a short, but apparently quite good H.P. Lovecraft adaptation, and that is the game Dagon. Not Days Gone, Dagon. And Dagon, I know, is a short story written by Lovecraft, which was one of the sort of the prototypes for Cthulhu, actually, for Call of Cthulhu, in so much as Dagon had a central concept where someone was stranded on an island that was desolate, and had the sea had sort of receded. This land had been pushed up out of the water, and the person in the narrative sees a sort of a fish person emerge from the water and interact with artifacts and ritualistic statue type stuff. And that would inspire not only obviously things like Cthulhu, but also the deep ones who would turn up in things like The Shadow over Innsmouth. So yeah, it's interesting. There's also some interesting things going on with this game's launcher as well, where these these images aren't loading. So the craving more doesn't seem to work, but I'm hopeful. I'm going to start and see where we go. Dagon is a faithful, interactive adaptation of H.P. Lovecraft's work, focused on story and atmosphere. You will not find difficult choices, action sequences, or inventory management here, and movement is limited to progressing through locations along with the plot. Okay.
I am writing this under an appreciable mental strain, since by tonight I shall be no more.
Crikey. Okay. Let's look around, shall we? Looks like look at the wallpaper. That's quite cool. I like that wallpaper. Sort of looks almost like little worms, but it's clearly inspired by Paisley pattern, but it's like you can start to see tentacles if you really want to. Yeah, that's cool. During the game, you'll encounter interactive elements. Some of them will allow you to continue your journey. Others reveal interesting facts about the original short story, its historical background, and the author. That's cool. Some of the trivia is hidden. In order to find these secrets, focus your eyes and look for the Elder Sign. Okay, so focus is the right mouse button. So for focus. Oh, there's a thing that's presumably, does that precede the story? I can't see the Elder Sign around here. Oh no, there's one. Oh. Lovecraft's letters. As to letters, my case is peculiar. I write such things exactly, as easily, and as rapidly as I would utter the same topics in conversation. Indeed, epistolary expression is with me largely replacing conversation, as my condition of nervous prostration becomes more and more acute. I cannot bear to talk much now, and am becoming as silent as the spectator himself. My loquacity extends itself on paper. H.P. Lovecraft to Reinhard Kleiner, December 23rd, 1917. Throughout his life, Lovecraft penned around 100,000 letters to his friends and fans, of which around 10% survive to this day. But his tendency to endless correspondence was a relatively late growth. In youth, I scarcely did any letter writing. Thanking anybody for a present was So much of an ordeal that I would rather have written a 250-line pastoral or a 20-page treatise on the rings of Saturn. Selected Letters 1929 to 1931. Lovecraft would often skip meals to afford postage. Collections of his correspondence have been published in various books, and selected letters can be found online. Some readers consider them his most important legacy. Interesting. You can read Discovery Trivia immediately or go back to them later in the main menu. Turn off displaying trivia if you find that the feature distracts you from the story. This can be changed anytime in the options. Okay. Cool.
Penniless, and at the end of my supply of the drug which alone makes life endurable, I can bear the torture no longer, and shall cast myself from this garret window into the squalid street below.
Wow.
Do not think from my slavery to morphine that I am a weakling or a degenerate.
Oh.
When you have read these hastily scrawled pages, you may guess, though never fully realize, why it is that I must have forgetfulness or death.
Okay. All hail Dagon! Exactly, Lord Engine. Exactly. Let's see, are there any elder signs here? No, so I guess we may continue.
It was in one of the most open and least frequented parts of the broad Pacific that the packet of which I was supercargo fell a victim to the German sea raider.
Okay. Well, there's a ship. Oh, there's an elder sign over there. Take a look. Dagon was written around a month after the United States entered World War I. Lovecraft was actively interested in its course. He composed many poems in which he gave encouragement to soldiers and commented on the events unfolding in Europe. He tried to enlist in the army, which he mentions in one of the letters to Reinhard Kleiner. Some time ago, impressed by my entire uselessness in the world, I resolved to attempt enlistment despite my almost invalid condition. I argued that if I chose a regiment soon to depart for France, my sheer nervous force, which is not inconsiderable, might sustain me till a bullet or a piece of shrapnel could more conclusively and effectively dispose of me. Letters to Reinhard Kleiner. But even though he passed the physical exam, his mother prevented him from going to the war. She has threatened to go to any lengths, legal or otherwise, if I do not reveal all the ills which unfit me for the army. I am Providence, the life and times of H.P. Lovecraft, S.T. Joshi. I think Joshi turns up in a couple of documentaries I've seen on Lovecraft, actually. Actually used to rather hard to get into the army. Now they take anybody. Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yeah.
The Great War was then at its very beginning, and the ocean forces of the Hun had not completely sunk to their later degradation.
Oh, now we're on board the German ship. Interesting. Okay. I can't see anything additional here. Interesting.
So that our vessel was made a legitimate prize, whilst we of her crew were treated with all the fairness and consideration due us as naval prisoners.
Okay. The Huns were Central Asian nomads who established a dominion in Europe and invaded the Roman Empire in the 5th century. They were known as brutal, deadly warriors and masters of quick raids who also developed powerful composite bows, lassos, and early siege weapons. During World War I, the British used the word Hun as a synonym for Germans in order to emphasize their brutality. However, the term originated when the German Emperor Wilhelm II gave a speech to his troops on the 27th of July 1900 before they embarked to China. Should you encounter the enemy, he will be defeated. No quarter will be given. Prisoners will not be taken. Whoever falls into your hands is forfeit. Just as 1,000 years ago, the Huns under their king Attila made a name for themselves, one that even today makes them seem mighty in history and legend, may the name of German be affirmed by you in such a way that in China that no Chinese will ever again dare to look cross-eyed at a German. Wow. The refusal to take prisoners was a clear breach of law and customs of war adopted during the First Hague Convention of 1899. Okay. Interesting. I'm quite liking this balance of story and context.
That 5 days after we were taken, I managed to escape alone in a small boat with water and provisions for a good length of time.
Now hopefully you can hear the narration. So what do we have? There's our provisions. I guess we're going.
When I finally found myself adrift and free, I had but little idea of my surroundings.
Interesting. Well, and to be fair, you've just been drifted. You've just set adrift. Presumably with no clear idea of where you were setting off from, never mind where your boat ends up. So, yeah.
Never a competent navigator, I could only guess vaguely by the sun and stars that I was somewhat south of the equator.
That's fair.
Of the longitude, I knew nothing, and no island or coastline was in sight.
Wait, I can hear a voice. I think that's in the game, like a little sort of, like a whining coming from somewhere. Yeah, it's like voices in the distance. That's interesting. I'm not sure I like it. So it's not clear how we proceed. No, that's just you, bud. No, they definitely are. You can hear them in the headphones, and they're repeating. It's not that someone else is in the room or outside or something. Look at the stars, shall we? Navigate.
The weather kept fair, and for uncounted days I drifted aimlessly beneath the scorching sun, waiting either for some passing ship or to be cast on the shores of some habitable land.
Well, that's understandable. I quite like this visual novel style of game. Aha, there's one. Dagon was written in July 1917. The cake is a lie. And first published in 1919 in The Vagrant, an amateur magazine focused on supernatural. The supernatural. The story is the first of his stories that include an element from the Cthulhu mythos. Dagon itself, A pagan cult worshipping Dagon later appears in The Shadow over Innsmouth, one of Lovecraft's most popular works. 1917 is also the year when he wrote The Tomb, a story about Jervis Dudley, a daydreamer who discovers a mysterious mausoleum in the woods by his house and becomes obsessed with it. And this is something that that I really appreciate about Lovecraft's writings is that he is interested in old places in a similar sort of romantic way to which I certainly was when I was younger. Well, and to this day, but I remember as a kid really embracing that sort of imagination, especially when it came to castles in North Wales. But also as well, he sort of it's proto Indiana Jones. It's all this. He wasn't the only author doing this, certainly not. But this sort of stuff leads to this idea of adventurers out there, and so on and so forth. These two works marked Lovecraft's These two works marked Lovecraft's return to short story writing after he burned most of his attempts at the genre 9 years prior and decided to concentrate on poetry. Lovecraft stated that it was his friend William Paul Cook, a literary publisher and critic, who convinced him to start writing weird fiction again. Well, good on Cook, I guess. Visual novel style is fine if you know what you're getting. Yeah. No, yeah, I can, and also in that sense, the game lays out at the beginning, doesn't it? It says this is a visual novel. Don't expect action adventure. It's very clear about that.
Neither ship nor land appeared, and I began to despair in my solitude upon the heaving vastness of unbroken blue.
Unbroken blue. I guess we're lying on our back in the boat now.
The change happened whilst I slept. Its details I shall never know. For my slumber, though troubled and dream-infested, was continuous.
There you go. We've woken up on this patch of land thrust up from the ocean floor, and you can see ancient life, trilobites and fossils mixed in with the creatures. And you're absolutely right. When he's able to put aside telling you essentially what he doesn't like about people, or certainly didn't like about people at that point in his life when he wrote those things, whichever story it is that you're reading, it's excellent. And there are times, when I'm reading, or most of the point, for the most part, listening to Lovecraft, that I have to just take a moment and just go, all right, man, calm down, stop it, because the story is excellent, even if it's often dripping in.
When at last I awoke, it was to discover
something evangelical almost.
Into a slimy expanse of hellish black mire, which extended about me in monotonous undulations as far as I could see.
Yeah. And you can see that these creatures have sort of been possibly unwillingly raised.
And in which my boat lay grounded some distance away.
Yeah. Well, I can't see any elder signs to click.
Though one might well imagine that my first sensation would be of wonder at so prodigious and unexpected a transformation of scenery, I was in reality more horrified than astonished.
Well, it's like he's on another planet, isn't it? It's like you've landed on... This could be a picture from the Mars rover, were it not wet and filled with squiggling life. It's quite a change.
For there was in the air and in the rotting soil a sinister quality which chilled me to the very core.
To the very core.
The region was putrid with the carcasses of decaying fish and of other less describable things which I saw protruding from the nasty mud of the unending plain.
Okay. So?
Perhaps I should not hope to convey in mere words the unutterable hideousness that can dwell in absolute silence and barren immensity.
I mean, that alone, that concept, this idea of cosmic horror, the horror of our existence in an uncaring cosmos, is fantastic. Like that again, that it's one of the reasons why Lovecraft's writing does persist, is despite his racism, the concepts that he was exploring and the things that he was clearly worried about as a human were immense to think about. And it's the sort of stuff that excites me and intrigues me. You know, what are we in this universe? And this idea of the unutterable hideousness that can dwell in absolute silence and barren immensity. I mean, that's someone traveling to Mars, isn't it? That's, yeah. Ever heard of A Cold War by Charles Stross? I haven't, no.
Hearing, and nothing in sight save a vast reach of black slime. Yet the very completeness of the stillness and the homogeneity of the landscape oppressed me with a nauseating fear.
Is it a book, presumably? I shall make a note of it.
The sun was blazing down from a sky which seemed to me almost black in its cloudless cruelty, as though reflecting the inky marsh beneath my feet.
Interesting. Okay. I shall make a note of that. A Colder War. Next to Langoliers. There we go. Just have one more look around. Can't see any narrative elder signs. Oh, here's one. Dagon seems to be inspired by Fishhead, a short novel by Irvin S. Cobb about unnatural affinities between a hybrid idiot and the strange fish of an isolated lake. Supernatural horror in literature, H.P. Lovecraft. And Lovecraft's dream about a strange island emerging from the ocean and him crawling in the ooze that covered its surface. I dreamed that that whole hideous crawl, and can yet feel the ooze sucking me down. In defense of Dagon, H.P. Lovecraft. Lovecraft's interest in the topic stemmed from his aversion to fish and sea smells. In his own words, I have hated fish and feared the sea and everything connected with it since I was 2 years old. But I cannot recall what earlier experience gave me such a profound and lasting aversion to the sea and seafood. Dwellers in Darkness. Lovecraft, 1927, by Donald Wandrei. Interesting. Oh, God, those noises. Ugh.
As I crawled into the stranded boat, I realized that only one theory could explain my position.
Only one? Crikey. It is... Oh, look at that thing over there. It's almost like a small hill. Undulating. Okay, let's hear it. What's the theory?
Through some unprecedented volcanic upheaval, a portion of the ocean floor must have been thrown to the surface, exposing regions for which innumerable millions of years had lain hidden under unfathomable watery depths.
Okay, interesting.
So great was the extent of the new land which had risen beneath me that I could not detect the faintest noise of the surging ocean, straining my ears as I might.
Nice.
Nor were there any seafowl to prey upon the dead things.
It's a grim vision, isn't it? And this is actually realizing it wonderfully well. Volcanic eruptions sometimes that result in the creation of islands. Most of them are transient and erode after some time, but some prove permanent. The floating pumice, porous rock created when superheated pressurized rock is ejected from a volcano, can move across long distances and transport barnacles and microalgae that cling to it. In 2001, rafts of pumice created during the eruption of a volcano near Tonga eventually reached Australia.
For several hours I sat thinking or brooding in the boat, which lay upon its side and afforded a slight shade as the sun moved across the heavens.
A little bit, doesn't it? Yeah. Yeah, all this stuff just sort of squirming.
As the day progressed, the ground lost some of its stickiness and seemed likely to dry sufficiently for traveling purposes in a short time.
Okay.
That night I slept but little, and the next day I made for myself a pack containing food and water, preparatory to an overland journey in search of the vanished sea and possible rescue.
Let's see if there are any... Nope.
On the third morning, I found the soil dry enough to walk upon with ease.
No. So you are the character who, as is so often the case with Lovecraft stories, you have this main character who's recounting the backstory leading up to the opening medias res at the beginning of the story. So the story starts with this guy in a flat contemplating jumping out the window because he's run out of morphine, and he's explaining why he needs all this morphine or to be dead because of this experience, I think. I can't quite recall his name, but he probably mentioned it at the beginning.
The odor of the fish was maddening, but I was too much concerned with graver things to mind so slight an evil, and set out boldly for an unknown goal.
Unknown goal. Well, okay. Can we see anything? Nope, just over there.
All day I forged steadily westward, guided by a faraway hummock which rose higher than any other elevation on the rolling desert.
Look at these weird creatures, weird things. And the thing is, you don't have to try that hard to make deep sea life look weird, do you? It is an alien world. Let's see, any more that I can see? Oh, there's a whale. Precisely, yeah. There was also a spider crab that is in the old museum in town in Newcastle.
That night I encamped, and on the following
Those
day
things are
still
huge.
travelled toward the hummock, though that object seemed scarcely nearer than when I had first espied it.
Espied it. That's a cool word. Well, have we got any more? So I'm just scanning each time just to see if there's one of the signs for the extras.
By the fourth evening, I attained the base of the mound, which turned out to be much higher than it had appeared from a distance.
Okay.
an intervening valley setting it out in sharper relief from the general surface.
Ooh, can you see something glinting there at the base of the mound? I don't know if I think I might be covering it up. Let's see if we can get it. You see? Just next to the word "the" on screen there. Join us at the Soupy server. It's just there. Interesting.
Too weary to ascend, I slept in the shadow of the hill. I know not why my dreams were so wild that night.
His fear of dreams, it seems to be, because we know that Lovecraft wrote a lot based on his research and reading, based on his childhood reading, but also his interest in reading literature and journals and pamphlets and things. And I think it's fairly clear that he was fascinated by the same sort of stuff that had fascinated people like Freud and co. He was interested in psychoactive and psychoanalytical nature of things like dreams and feedback that you can get into in your own psyche and this kind of thing. But this idea, because he's already in the language so far, and I'm pretty sure that these words are taken straight from the book, from the story. He talks about being infected by dreams as well. And here, dreams were wild that night, as though they are a conduit to something external to yourself, and can also therefore be infected by something external to yourself.
But ere the waning and fantastically gibbous moon had risen far above the eastern plain,
Gibbous, classic.
I was awake in a cold perspiration, determined to sleep no more.
I shall sleep no more. Exactly, yeah. And if not familial, he certainly, in that sense,
such visions as I experienced were too much for me to endure again.
Is a descendant, in that sense, a literary descendant of Poe.
And in the glow of the moon, I saw how unwise I had been to travel by day.
Now, that looks as though, looking at the moon, we're in this northern hemisphere. So we weren't south of the equator. Or maybe he drifted north of the equator.
Without the glare of the parching sun, my journey would have cost me less energy.
Okay. Well.
Indeed, I now felt quite able to perform the ascent which had deterred me at sunset. Picking up my pack, I started for the crest of the eminence.
Well, off we go. Contrary to popular opinion, Lovecraft was not an ever-frowning, eccentric, grumpy loner. He considered himself to be a person who appreciated humour. Moreover, he would often meet with friends in his apartment or at various cafes in Brooklyn and Manhattan. At times, his social life was so intensive, his work would suffer for months. There was a point when he finally decided he needed to put an end to daily meetings and loitering in New York cafeterias, and resorted to hiding at home and reading with the main room light turned off, pretending he wasn't there whenever a friend knocked on his door. He also had another method of deterring his guests, which involved greeting them in a bathrobe, with an unmade bed visible in the background and a pile of papers scattered across the floor. Well, fair enough.
I have said that the unbroken monotony of the rolling plain was a source of vague horror to me. But I think my horror was greater when I gained the summit of the mound and looked down the other side into an immeasurable pit or canyon.
Exactly, yeah. Not using the internet all the time, not doom scrolling, yeah.
Whose black recesses the moon had not yet soared high enough to illumine.
Illumine. Although now the moon seems to be... Actually, it is. It's lit from the other side now. So maybe we're moving around in space and time.
I felt myself on the edge of the world, peering over the rim into a fathomless chaos of eternal night.
And it's interesting. I remember as a teenager hearing the words cosmic horror, and early internet searches in the early 2000s would mention Lovecraft. And in fact, lots of people in my life mentioned Lovecraft. They say, "Oh, you'd love Lovecraft," looking at the other things that I was into and that I continue to be into. But this idea of cosmic horror it wasn't adequately explained to me. And yet it's a very relatable sensation. If you are a bit of a worrier or a thinker, if you value life as opposed to a lack of life, you're going to think about some of this stuff. And this idea of the fathomless chaos of eternal night. It's entropy, isn't
Through
it?
my terror ran curious reminiscences of Paradise Lost, and of Satan's hideous climb through the unfashioned realms of darkness. As the moon climbed higher in the sky, I began to see that the slopes of the valley were not quite so perpendicular as I had imagined.
Is it going to sort of reveal itself to us as we go? Can we see any? No. Okay.
Ledges and outcroppings of rock afforded fairly easy footholds for a descent,
Okay.
whilst after a drop of only a few hundred feet, the declivity became very gradual.
Declivity. He yeah, he never shied away from an unnecessarily flowery way of describing something, did he? It was, I think, Guillermo del Toro described his work as being sort of so intensely worked on, so constructed, and in that sense, sort of flowery and excessive, and fashioned and refashioned and refined, but refined to the point of being effete, actually being almost almost unrelatable, almost going beyond the simple matter of what he's trying to communicate. That it can put some people off. I know that his writing style really annoyed a lot of people I knew in university, for example. You might like the Jury stories. The author also ghost wrote some mythos stuff. Okay, cool. There's another one for the notepad. Excuse me.
Urged on by an impulse which I cannot definitely analyze, I scrambled with difficulty down
here
the
we
rocks
are.
and stood on the gentler slope beneath.
Gerald of Jewelry. Joyery. Cool. Thank you. Yeah.
Gazing into the Stygian deeps,
Stygian.
where no light had yet penetrated.
Stygian, the best.
All at once, my attention was captured by a vast and singular object on the opposite slope, which rose steeply about 100 yards ahead of me. An object that gleamed whitely in the newly bestowed rays of the ascending moon.
And of course, people are still essentially doing this, aren't they? Making obelisks and things for art and for impact, and placing them in places where they ought not be. Sudden order in a sea of disorder can be unnerving, even though apparently we were looking for order all along, for rescue, for some sign of something sensible.
That it was merely a gigantic piece of stone, I soon assured myself. But I was conscious of a distinct impression that its contour and position were not altogether the work of nature. A closer scrutiny filled me with sensations I cannot express.
Well, you can try. Come on, use your words. No, you're not going to try? Okay, fair enough. Let's see if we can see any... No. Okay.
For despite its enormous magnitude, and its position in an abyss which had yawned at the bottom of the sea since the world was young, I perceived beyond a doubt that the strange object was a well-shaped monolith.
Monolith!
Whose massive bulk had known the workmanship and perhaps the worship of living and thinking creatures.
There you go. That's
Dazed
what you
and
needed to hear.
frightened, yet not without a certain thrill of the scientist's or archaeologist's delight.
Archaeologists.
I examined my surroundings more closely.
Okay. Well, let's see. Can we see any more? Nope.
The moon, now near the zenith, shone weirdly and vividly above the towering steeps that hemmed in the chasm, and revealed the fact that a far-flung body of water flowed at the bottom, winding out of sight in both directions, and almost lapping my feet as I stood on the slope.
And it seems to be revealing markings.
Across the chasm, the wavelets washed the base of the cyclopean monolith, on whose surface I could now trace both inscriptions and crude sculptures.
That's an interesting use of words, isn't it? Crude sculptures. This is clearly a difficult thing to make, and he's commented on craftsmanship, tools, etc. Why is it crude? I mean, he may well be using a word simply to describe something which does not match the author or the character's sense of what art is. I'm talking like an anthropologist now, aren't I? Cultural relativism is basically what I'm getting at. You know, might be crude to you, but it doesn't mean it's not well made.
The writing was in a system of hieroglyphics unknown to me and unlike anything I'd ever seen in books, consisting for the most part of conventionalized aquatic symbols such as fishes, eels, octopi, crustaceans, mollusks, whales, and the like. Several characters obviously represented marine things which are unknown to the modern world.
I love how his characters are often coincidentally very well read. Or they have a passing knowledge of various things. So he's touched on archaeology, marine biology, evolutionary biology by the sounds of it as well.
But whose decomposing forms I had observed on the ocean-risen plain.
Okay, so
It
he's
was
also
the
been
pictorial
observing.
carving, however, that did most to hold me spellbound.
Oh, what's it going to be? Is it going to be... Oh. Dagon contains many themes and storytelling methods that Lovecraft developed in his later works, such as telling the story through carvings at the Mountains of Madness, the Nameless City, journals and characters' notes, The Shadow Out of Time, The Haunter of the Dark, islands emerging from the ocean, Call of Cthulhu, or fictional beings and deities based on real events and mythologies, Miko in The Whisper of the Darkness, In the Darkness. It's also considered the origin of the popular Cthulhu mythos. Some of Lovecraft's other stories also conclude in a manner similar to Dagon, but let's skip the details in order not to spoil the ending. I can see people at the bottom. People at the bottom. Maybe a door. Oh no, that's not a door, that's the obelisk. Anyway, cool.
Plainly visible across the intervening water on account of their enormous size were an array of bas-reliefs whose subjects would have excited the envy of a Doré.
Okay.
I think that these things were supposed to depict men, At least a certain sort of men.
What sort of men?
Though the creatures were shown disporting like fishes in the waters of some marine grotto.
Oh, so they're kind of like men fish.
Or paying homage at some monolithic shrine, which appeared to be under the waves as well. Of their faces and forms I dare not speak in
the
detail, for the mere remembrance makes me grow faint. Grotesque beyond the imagination of a Poe or a Bulwer.
Ah, there you go. Poe, Bulwer.
They were damnably human in general outline, despite webbed hands and feet, shockingly wide and flabby lips.
I've heard that phrase in many different places. Damnably human.
Glassy, bulging eyes, and other features less pleasant to recall. Curiously enough, they seem to have been chiseled badly out of proportion with their scenic background. For one of the creatures was shown in the act of killing a whale, represented as but little larger than himself.
Are you sure that's out of proportion?
I remarked, as I say, their grotesqueness and strange size, but in a moment decided that they were merely the imaginary gods of some primitive fishing or seafaring tribe.
Okay.
Some tribe whose last descendant had perished eras before the first ancestor of the Piltdown or Neanderthal man was born.
Ah, Piltdown. Piltdown. Interesting. Are we going to get anything about that? No? Okay.
Awestruck at this unexpected glimpse into a past beyond the conception of the most
Daring anthropologist.
I stood musing whilst the moon cast queer reflections on the silent channel before me.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Yeah. Piltdown. It's interesting. But again, this was written at a time when Piltdown was still accepted.
Then, suddenly,
I saw it. What is it? Where is it?
with only a slight churning to mark its rise to the surface, the thing slid into view above the dark waters.
Oh, the music's good, isn't it?
Polyphemus-like and loathsome, it darted like a stupendous monster of nightmares to the monolith.
Cool.
About which it flung its gigantic scaly arms, the while it bowed its hideous head and gave vent to certain measured sounds. I think I went mad then. Of my frantic ascent of the sloping cliff and of my delirious journey back to the stranded boat, I remember little.
Okay.
I believe I sang a great deal and laughed oddly when I was unable to sing.
See, now the moon is lit on the right-hand side again, and it's the northern hemisphere side up. Can we see any? No.
I have indistinct recollections of a great storm sometime after I reached the boat.
Oh, it's all going to go back below the waters, isn't it? Typical.
At any rate, I know that I heard pearls of thunder and other tones which nature utters only in her wildest moods. When I came out of the shadows, I was in a San Francisco hospital.
Nice.
Brought thither by the captain of the American ship which had picked up my boat in mid-ocean. In my delirium, I had said much, but found that my words had been given scant attention.
Okay.
Of any land upheaval in the Pacific, my rescuers knew nothing. Nor did I deem it necessary to insist upon a thing which I knew they could not believe.
Yeah. Left my mind in San Francisco. Lovecraft was a prominent figure in the world of amateur journalism. In 1915, he published his own journal called The Conservative, which included political and social commentary, poetry, short stories, and literary criticism written by him and other authors. Howard was a skilled wordsmith, but he also took criticisms to heart, which resulted in his decision to step away from writing poetry and concentrate on weird fiction again for the first time since his teenage years. Dagon, published in 1919, is one of the short stories written during that period. In this excerpt from The Conservative, the master of horror fiction explains his attitude towards warfare and the idea of world peace. Why any sane human being can believe in the possibility of universal peace is more than the Conservative can fathom. Should the entire civilized world agree simultaneously to disarm, one or more nations would undoubtedly retain secret armaments, and at the proper time take advantage of their more altruistic and less astute contemporaries in a wild career of conquest against unarmed victims. No country is or ever can be above warfare until the basic impulses of the human animal shall have miraculously changed. Interesting.
Once I sought out a celebrated ethnologist and amused him with peculiar questions regarding the ancient Philistine legend of Dagon, the fish god.
Now, what's interesting here is that I guess you could say that he's just trying, the character that is just trying to make sense of what he's seen. And so has come across this ethnologist, cultural historian, who has supplied the idea of this fish god, Dagon. But what he's described, what he's seen, what he's implied in what he's seen is far older than the Bronze Age near or Middle East, you know. Dagon, cosmic horror scholar, nice, was the main deity of the Philistines, worshipped throughout the Middle East as the ancient god of fertility and crops. In Hebrew, the word Dagon was a common noun for grain. The rulers of Akkad, Mesopotamia, chose him as the patron saint of their war conquests. He also appeared as the judge of the dead in an Assyrian poem and an underworld prison warder in one of the Babylonian texts. He's often mistakenly taken for a fish god due to the wrong interpretation of his name, as in Hebrew, the word dag means fish. In H.P. Lovecraft's works, Dagon is an underwater deity ruling over the deep ones, a humanoid race with fish traits that resides in the oceans. He is worshipped by a secret cult called the EOD, the Esoteric Order of Dagon. So yeah, there is a desperation in this character research, but again, I suppose you would be desperate to make some sort of sense of things, wouldn't you? Makes sense. Anything else we can see? No. It's a nice desk, a nice chair. Oh. Some something over there.
But soon perceiving that he was hopelessly conventional, I did
There we
not
go.
press my
See?
inquiries.
Hopelessly conventional. I can see the Necronomicon there. Necronomicon. Oh. August Derleth, and the Cthulhu Mythos. He was an American writer and anthropologist. No, and anthologist, sorry. An American writer and anthologist. He also befriended Lovecraft and published many of his works through his company, Arkham House. Yeah. Although he greatly contributed to the popularization of the author's works after his death, he is surrounded by numerous controversies. One of the more questionable decisions involved introducing the good versus evil doctrine. Derleth was a devout Catholic to the Cthulhu Mythos, which contrasted with Lovecraft's view of the world and his approach to cosmic horror. As a result, the author's works are often misunderstood and misrepresented in today's culture. Yeah, keeping it casual on your shelf. And beautifully bound as well. It's also worth noting that Lovecraft was never really interested in creating a mythology, and the term Cthulhu Mythos was coined by Derleth after the author left the mortal plane. Yeah. But, to be fair, Derleth and other contemporaries of Lovecraft saw value in his work and wanted it to continue beyond the relatively poorly quality printed paper, the highly acidic and very pulp paper, the paper that would just fall apart, that it had previously been published in. So they kind of had to form it into something to get Arkham House off the ground and to get people to understand what they were looking at and reading, I guess, and wanting more of it. Yeah. But it's an interesting idea, though, that he introduced something a bit more, well, conventional, as they say, about the ethnologist. Oh. These days, the word scientist is a widely accepted term, but at the time Dagon was published, it was subject to a wide debate. Interesting. After the author used it in the story, critics pointed out that man of science was a more appropriate term to employ. He admitted, in defense of Dagon, that if Dagon were to be reprinted, he should indeed use the phrase they suggest. Scientist was coined as an analogue to artist, to be used when referring to those studying different branches of science. Yet, in the 19th and early 20th century, scientific researchers in Great Britain and the United States were of the opinion that man of science, resembling the term man of letters, was the only proper choice. Among other things, it was gender specific, indicating that science was an endeavour to be pursued only by one sex. The term scientist became more accepted only after World War II, and man of science started fading into obscurity as an old-fashioned synonym. Fair? Very fair.
It is at night.
And here we are, back at the lab,
Waning, that I
the flat.
think.
He loves that gibbous moon, doesn't he? He loves it.
I tried morphine.
You did try morphine.
But the drug has given only transient surcease, and has drawn me into its clutches as a hopeless slave. So now I am to end it all, having written a full account for the information or the contemptuous amusement of my fellow men.
Blimey. Yeah, even this guy who's destitute has classy decor. cool wallpaper. Lovecraft hated tobacco, even though he used to smoke when he was 12 in order to look and feel like an adult. In his correspondence with friend Reinhard Kleiner, he claims that he quit as soon as he started wearing long pants. Wow. He also had very strong opinion about alcohol, as evidenced in his letter to Zelia Brown, dated 13th of February 1928. As for the matter of drinking, I have never tasted intoxicating liquor and never intend to, having a strong aesthetic disgust at anything which blunts or coarsens the delicate natural equipoise of the evolved human intellect and imagination. Drinking excited my personal repugnance, hence I don't drink. Let the herd do what they will. I am rather in favour of prohibition, the prohibition of any one antisocial force as well of any other. Source: The Spirit of Revision, Lovecraft's letters to Zelia Brown, Reed Bishop. Okay. Well, I have some sympathy for that. I don't think that you should just take away and legislate against people's ability to have vices or to enjoy oneself in a way that's socially acceptable and legal. That said, though, I do recognise that drinking, especially as an observer of people who are drunk, drinking can simplify, and people talk about it as being a social lubricant, don't they? As being something which just eases eases the way through parties, through gatherings and so on and so forth, gets people talking, breaks down barriers. But also as well, it creates a false sense of closeness and kinship, I think, sometimes. And I remember, and I think he just say he never drank? Yeah, he did, yeah. And I remember when I was living and working in York, and quite happily engaging in almost nightly, not quite nightly, maybe once or twice a week, to be fair, evenings out with my colleagues, because basically that's all we had to do really in York was hang out. And I've never been one for clubs. I don't like clubs. So pubs where you can actually hear people and talk to them was what we would do. And this guy who's a biologist, he went on to have I think he may still actually have a career in TV, public communication scientist. He certainly, I've seen him in a couple of specials doing massive autopsies on animals. He was involved in a program that cut open a whale which was beached because it was going to be blown up, dynamited. So they took the opportunity to do an autopsy, dissection. And he commented on this. He said that because he never drank with us, but he always hung around with us, and he didn't seem to mind as people got, myself included, got more and more jolly, more and more unguarded, and then eventually, as the evening wore on, more and more poorly. Some people wouldn't know when to stop, and occasionally I would have a night like that myself, and I have a lot of sympathy now for that observation, that it does create a false sense of a bubble that you're in. It narrows your focus. It makes uninteresting things interesting. And I can see why he didn't have much. He had patience for it, clearly, because he hung around with us, but he didn't have much interest in it. And increasingly, I feel similarly. I don't drink really much at all anymore. And that's one of the reasons why my family's full of drink. Yeah, that's the thing. You shouldn't have to be comfortable with it, and especially in Britain, it's such a drinking culture we have here, and people had this is a slight tangent, isn't it, about alcohol? But it's interesting, I think. There are similar issues in Scandinavia. So in Sweden, certainly I know, drinking laws were implemented, and all alcohol outlets, pubs and shops that sold alcohol were actually brought under government control. Not to stop you having access. My friend who lives in Sweden is actually quite proud of the fact that she can order any alcohol she wants from across the world. She can just say, I want to try that beer that I've read about on the internet. And because it's government owned, they have to procure it, and it's somewhat subsidized to a certain extent. My understanding is, anyway, but the laws may have shifted a little bit since we last talked about this. But bags of clinking bottles are shameful. So if you're walking along the street and you hear clink, 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 which is very common in Britain, this one's just been to the shop for some beers. And this is because the dark winters led people down very dark paths with alcohol, isolation and so on and so forth. And here, yeah, we don't get snowed in as often. We're not as isolated as often as people are in Sweden. But we're not that, where I'm sat at the moment isn't that far away in terms of latitude. To where she lives, and so there's some crossover, and I think that's one of the reasons why in this country, I say this country meaning the United Kingdom, that there is a problem with drinking, heavy drinking, especially in the winters, and especially at the weekends. It's that so-called work hard, play hard, but then with that northern European, dark time of the year, double whammy, here you can't drink in public, so if you're doing it, you hide it. Which, yeah, and that's the thing, is the moment you see someone holding a paper bag with something in it, you kind of know what they're doing, don't you? They introduced, when I was a teenager, they introduced laws in, bylaws, local council laws in Rhyl, in the town just up from basically the nearest medium-sized town, with some chain stores that weren't in my town on the coast. They introduced laws that said basically you couldn't drink in public out and about, and you'd be fined if you were. And that seems to have had an impact on antisocial behaviour, but also as well, let's face it, liquids and other effusions that turn up the morning after people have been out all night. Let's continue. Or not, as the case may be.
I ask myself if it could not all have been a pure phantasm. A mere freak of fever, as I lay sun-stricken and raving in the open boat after my escape from the German man of war. This I ask myself, but ever does there come before me a hideously vivid vision in reply. I cannot think of the deep sea without shuddering at the nameless things that may at this very moment be crawling and floundering on its slimy bed.
How small that boat is. He's going to be very sunburned.
Worshipping their ancient stone idols and carving their own detestable likenesses on submarine obelisks of water-soaked granite. I dream of a day when they may rise above the billows to drag down into their reeking talons the remnants of puny, war-exhausted mankind.
Isn't that interesting?
Of a day when the land shall sink and the dark ocean shall ascend amidst universal pandemonium.
Oh, and there's Lady Liberty. Yeah. This idea of war exhaustion. I can't help but think that we're not actually there, after the 20th century. What's happening? Something banging on the door? Something is banging on the door. Oh, no. Well, anything I can do? I guess not. The end may be near, but what can I do?
I hear a noise at the door, as of some immense slippery body lumbering against it.
Oh no. Oh, I don't want to go to the door. Okay.
It shall not find me.
Oh dear.
God, that hand!
Yeah, Amazon.
The window!
The idea that someone would write this down. God, that hand! The window! I guess this is our way out. That's the end of the story. From madness to oblivion. We hope you enjoyed immersing yourself in our little pool of cosmic horror. We would appreciate it if you took a moment to rate Dagon and check out our other games and DLCs. Well, again, these ones have failed to load. Cthulhu's Bedtime Stories. Let's take a look at that, shall we? Is this a game? Ah. Discover the origin of the Cthulhu mythos and the twisted world of H.P. Lovecraft. Get a glimpse into Lovecraft's mind at 7 years old. Interesting. The Eldritch Box DLC, Little Glass Bottle DLC, Railway Horror DLC. I am intrigued. Intriguing. But not today, I think. I think that will... that's fine for now. And I'll leave feedback in my own time. Now, we don't necessarily want to exit the game, do we? Also, that artwork is gorgeous, given the context of the story. You have the morphine syringe, we have the expanse with the boat, we have the mountain in the background, the moon up above, and all the while encircled by various sea life.
And scary stories have been accompanying men for centuries. They have many faces and forms. But what is their purpose? Why do we enjoy being afraid so much? During our therapy, I'll try to get
Interesting. Dr. Emerson's Nocturnes. Let's take a look at that, shall we? Dive into the world of the best classic weird fiction and cosmic horror writers. Try out our original approach to bringing literature into the interactive medium. Relax and let Dr. Emerson guide you through all the colours of dread. Release date 2026. I shall wish list that, yeah, why not? This is quite a clever little way of getting you interested in what they're doing. I like it. Mouth of Madness is really yes, and also the Mouth of Madness. Oh, okay, I missed quite a few of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I missed 7. Still, could be worse. Oh, interesting. So this must be from the DLCs. Yeah, interestingly, it was really hard to find it on DVD in this country. I had to order, I think it was Malaysian. I think it was a Malaysian DVD, which was both in its menu, in its packaging, and in its presentation. Its default language and default setting was English without subtitles. So effectively, it was a Region 2 European compatible, in that sense, PAL region compatible DVD, but you just couldn't buy it. Was out of print. So I've got a copy in the living room now. I'm so glad I got it. John Carpenter, fantastic. So that's all. Yeah, that's all the trivia. And the DLC. Yep, we have those guys. Very nice. Options. Yep. And there we go. That was fun. I've got one achievement that yet to get. Find all the trivia pieces hidden in the game. Only 5.8% of players have this achievement. Well, I'm gonna do that at some point. Definitely gonna go back and do that without a doubt. But that was good. That was really good. That was actually more than I was hoping for. And so much as I love the extra stuff. I love the context. And the exploration of some of the stuff surrounding his writing. Really, really good. Fish sticks achievement unlocked. Yeah, exactly. But there you go, guys. Oopsie daisy. I just I pressed the wrong button. Really sorry about that. Hello. That was good. That was great. I was saying I really enjoyed that. I'm going to definitely try and maybe play the DLC as well. But as an achievement in terms of a story and the presentation of a story, I think that was really good and enjoyable and atmospheric, as it should be. Thank you so much for turning up, everyone. Apologies for skipping to the standby there instead of the lobby. And I shall see you on the Discord. And if I don't stream tomorrow night, because I may have to do some preparation for a day working in the park, I will be over on the YouTube channel streaming the writing moot. This year's theme being bait and switch. Around about 10 o'clock, between 10 and 11, it'll start. Again, depends on some movable things. But keep an eye out for that. I shall be making the link live tomorrow, so I'll share that link on the Discord and elsewhere, so that you can keep an eye on it. And yeah, I shall see you around. It's been fun. Good night.